Hello and welcome to my review of WWE Money in the Bank 2021. This is my first video on the channel and it was a really good pay-per-view to actually make a first video out of. I mean, obviously fans back in the arenas, that's the headline. They were understandably really hot for the whole night really, even in some of the matches that didn't really deliver too much. But yeah, and all in all it was a pretty good pay-per-view, and we'll run through the matches one by one. So I'll run through the matches one by one, giving them a rating out of 10. Again, these are highly personalised, so please share your thoughts as well on how you think the matches went. I feel like there's going to be a couple of ratings I give that might be a bit controversial, but I'll try to explain them as best I can. So we'll start off at the pre-show where we had the Mysterios, obviously Rey and Dominik, facing the Usos for the SmackDown Tag Team Championships. Obviously Mysterios going in as champions. They had a weird new entrance sort of graphic where they came out of some sort of Aztec looking structure. It was weird, but I guess it's something different and it popped the crowd. So yeah, it was a good match, especially for a pre-show. Dominik was this particular highlight. I mean, he's only been wrestling for, I don't even know if it's been a full year. Maybe it is a full year now, but yeah, he's very good. And obviously Rey is timeless. He can still go basically like he did like 20 years ago. But yeah, yeah, it was a good match. There was one spot where Rey went for a 619, and I can't remember if it was Jimmy or Jay was the one about to receive it, but the other one of the twins went and took the 619 for him. It was really good. That really probably should have been the finish after whoever it was super kicked Rey after the fact, but instead they went for a roll-up finish where the Usos used each other for leverage to pin them. So yeah, we got new SmackDown Tag Team Champions, and yeah, it was a good match with pre-show and maybe a predictable titles change, but nah, it was done very well. So we'll move on to the main card, and the first match of the night was the Women's Money in the Bank. The match really for Money in the Banks, it was probably one of the weaker ones I've seen. It was carried a lot by the crowd who were enthusiastic, and the women were obviously very good in the match, but some of the spots just didn't quite click, or the chemistry was a bit off in some places. Weird than that, it was quite funny in the entrances because Natalya got such boos, which is very harsh but kind of funny, and Alexa Bliss got cheers, an alarming amount of cheers in my opinion, but hey ho, each to their own. Yeah, so at the start of the match there was a sort of like a recounting of all their previous wins, like Alexa Bliss obviously won Money in the Bank, Asuka did. That was sort of a theme throughout the show where a lot of the matches had an unusual amount of hindsight in the WWE's part. They don't usually recount an awful lot of their history, but maybe this is to warm the fans' brains back up for the pay-per-view. I don't know what that was about, but yeah, some of the spots in the match were like Alexa trying to use the Force to bring the briefcase down, which was bizarre. Naomi was really good in the match. Obviously she's very talented and underutilised, anyone could tell you that. But yeah, they all teamed up on Alexa Bliss, piled ladders on her because she was obviously the one to watch in the match, I guess. So once they buried Bliss under the ladders, the other 6 of the women? Yeah, 6 of the women were fighting on the ladders, like the sort of typical 3 ladder spot, and they were all standing on either sides of it. And yeah, Nikki, almost a superhero now, snuck up behind them all and just went and took the briefcase. It was a really surprising win, but it was probably made the match a bit better as well because it was an unpredictable winner and it was a babyface win, so it was good. But the match was decent, but again, especially when you see another Money in the Bank like later in the night, it sort of showed they could have done a bit better. So we'll move on to the next match, which was the Viking Raiders taking on the Raw Tag Team Champions Omos and AJ Styles. For some reason before the match started, WWE felt the need to recount the Viking Raiders feud with the Street Profits from last year, which was bizarre. But the match started with AJ Styles immediately tagging Omos in. The crowd were really behind AJ Styles, which was bizarre because obviously they were the heels in this particular match, but the fans didn't seem to mind very much. There was a spot where almost flung AJ Styles out of the ring, and he did this like a Hurricane Rana on Eric, I think it was, of the Viking Raiders, and it was pretty good. Almost just he did okay. Obviously, he's got limited in-ring abilities, but he sort of had a looming presence, shouting "This is my house" numerous times. So, the Raiders were good as well. They're very agile and like hard hitting, which is good. But I mean, they were just sort of trying to work around almost his limited abilities. But it was a good match. It was. The dynamic probably let down because the heels were the ones being cheered for very ferociously by the fans. So yeah, it was okay. After that, we had Bobby Lashley versus Kofi Kingston for the WWE Championship. Out of all the matches, other than the Money in the Bank matches on the card, I was probably most looking forward to this because Kofi has done really well in the build. So has Bobby, but Kofi especially has been in good form in promos and stuff. So yeah, Kofi, when he came out, he got a big cheer and he looked buzzing, which was really nice. But the match started quickly. Kofi tried to obviously catch Lashley off guard, but it didn't work. Lashley quickly started dominating, and it really just turned into an elongated squash, really. It wasn't obviously an amazing match because it was just a long squash, but Kofi sold it really well. And I was eventually tapped out by Lashley in a hurtlock after really not getting any off it. And it's kind of sad for Kofi because this is sort of his role now, is just playing a part, building other people, but it was really effective. And now hopefully Lashley going into SummerSlam against reportedly Goldberg, he looks a bit stronger. So yeah, that looks like a good matchup on paper, so we'll see how that one goes. But yeah, it was a decent enough presentation and effective nonetheless. So next was the Raw Women's Championship match between Charlotte Flair and Rhea Ripley. I must say this, I think I said in my preview article on the website, this has probably been the worst WWE feud this year quite easily. Both women seem miscast and just completely like out of sorts, which is bizarre because they're two of the best wrestlers on the roster, but I guess sometimes that can happen. So the match started with the fans chanting "We want Becky." Obviously reports of Becky Lynch coming back imminently. It got round to the fans in the arena, and yeah, Charlotte in response flipped off the fans, which was quite funny, I'm not going to lie. They took it well enough, the fans. They was sort of just adding to Charlotte's arrogant persona. So yeah, in the match, Rhea took some really quite gnarly bumps on the outside and stuff to really sort of diffuse the hostile crowd, I guess, from all the Becky chants. But yeah, both women who have this year not been at their best in ring, like this was a really good, like they were much sharper. There was a lot of counter moving, I think that's a phrase. But yeah, like a lot of impressive moves and stuff. Charlotte hit an avalanche natural selection, which I think that's what you call it. Maybe like I don't know. I don't, technically it's not an avalanche because she's not holding. But anyway, yeah, we're not going to get bogged down on wrestling terminology. So yeah, she hit a natural selection off like the middle or top rope. It was really good. But yeah, Rhea kicked out, and then eventually she just targeted Rhea's leg and made her tap out. Yeah, it was a really good match. Like, it was annoying almost that the build to this was so bad. But again, similar to like the Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair match at WrestleMania earlier this year, that was like one of my favourite matches of the year, even though the build was pretty bad. It wasn't as bad as this, admittedly, but it was still pretty bad. But yeah, no Becky Lynch either after the match, which didn't seem to bother the fans too much as Charlotte won her 13th or 14th title. Yeah, she's catching up on old Rick. So yeah, it was a good match. I'm glad that they had a good match, finally. So we're on to what was by far probably for me the best match of the night. It was men's Money in the Bank ladder match. So there's a lot to cover here. I'll try and be as brief as possible, but this will probably be quite a long segment. So before the match, Riddle was being an absolute weirdo with Eric Bugenhagen, Rick Boogs, whatever he's called now, and Shinsuke Nakamura, where they were all singing Randy Orton's theme tune. It was, I'm sure someone liked it. But yeah, for some reason, out of all the entrances, maybe not all of them, but one of the ones that stuck out was John Morrison got such a ovation. The crowd were so into him. Johnny Drip Drip, as he's called. So stupid. But yeah, started the match. John Morrison and Seth Rollins were arguing over who's the Drip King or something. I don't know what drip means, I'm not gonna lie. I feel old, but I actually still have no idea what that means. But regardless, yeah, and Big E and Drew had a face-off as well, and they were obviously the two biggest boys in the match. And yeah, there was so many spots, I can't list them all, but yeah, for a long period of the match, John Morrison and Rollins were working together after they figured out their drip argument. But eventually, Morrison and Rollins turned on Morrison, I should say, so that was predictable. But yeah, Big E, funnily enough, took a lot of offense, which made you maybe put doubt in your mind, but Drew was going to actually go up and grab the briefcase with no one around him, but then old Jinder Mahal raging about his bike came out and stopped him. It's funny, but I'm kind of glad because I love Drew, but he's not in a good place. I don't think it was considering he was like a year ago where he was beating Brock and all that stuff. But anyways, yeah, a feud with Jinder. I'm sure all the three-man band stands will be buzzing about that. And yeah, there was an insane spot where Ricochet got pushed off a ladder and he sort of then springboarded off the ropes and did a big tope. It was mental. He's obviously insanely talented and he needs to be doing more insane stuff like that because he's class. But yeah, Riddle started RKOing everybody for his friend Randy, who didn't actually appear in the match, which was maybe some people expected Randy to come back and maybe cost Riddle or help him. It'd probably more likely cost him, but yeah, I can't remember. I think it was Seth Rollins was about to reach the briefcase, and John Morrison used the drip stick. It was quite funny. He sprayed the drip stick in his face to stop him and then pushed him off, but then Morrison also got taken down, and then Kevin Owens was sort of stunning everybody. He got powerbombed to the outside on a ladder that was set up because he's insane. He just seems intent on wanting to kill himself in the ring, which is mental, but he's also very good at it, so fair play. And then yeah, Big E and Rollins were the last two, and Big E got rid of him. They did a big ending off the ladder, and then he went and got the briefcase, and it was the absolute right person to win, because Big E has been bound for the main event for years at this point, and loads of people want to see him win it, and we'll see if he cashes in on Roman or Bobby going forward, because he now has beef with Bobby, I guess, with how he's done with the New Day, so we'll see how it goes. But no, it was a great match, and yeah, match of the night for sure. It's worth noting before the main event that Seth Rollins was doing a backstage interview, and he was sort of moaning to the interviewer saying, oh, well, how is it all going wrong, I should have won, blah blah blah. Eventually comes around to the conclusion it's all Edge's fault because of the sort of hostility they've had with each other in recent weeks. Edge shouldn't have the opportunity and all that stuff, but yeah, so it was kind of maybe laying it on a bit thick that Rollins was going to get involved in this match. They could have been a bit more subtle, but WWE doesn't do subtle very well, so this is the best we can get. So yeah, the main event was Edge versus Roman Reigns, and I must admit, people seem to really like it, but I could not. It was very much Triple H circa 2003-04 in its structure, maybe a bit harsh, because obviously Roman's not Triple H. He's very good and his character is very good, but the match was so slow, and the highest, I know what they were trying to go for as an epic main event, but I don't think that was, the crowd seemed into it, but they were saying, there was a "this is awesome" chant that broke out at one point, and I honestly couldn't tell you more than 2 or 3 spots that happened in this match. So I will say Roman worked the crowd really well. He was looking despondent to the reaction he was getting. Like, that was good. Edge was obviously fired up. Roman just sort of went about picking at Edge's weaknesses and stuff, and it was just too long-winded for me. There was a couple of high spots, like the barricade breaking spear from Edge onto Roman, and then there was a crossface with the chair leg that he's been doing on SmackDown over the first 3 weeks. But yeah, eventually calamity ensued, as it often does, and Usos came out to help Roman, but then Mysterios came out to get rid of them, so you think, oh, maybe they will be just a clean one-on-one fight. But then Seth Rollins comes out and interferes in the match and costs Edge. So yeah, Roman pins Edge, choked him. Oh, see, I can't even remember if he pinned him or choked him out. Sorry, that's just as much of my bad note taking as it is the remembrance of the match. But yeah, it wasn't. I could see what they were going for, but it wasn't the right vibe at all for me. But that wasn't the end of it, because after Edge and Rollins went away fighting, who else returns to face Roman Reigns but John Cena? And I know a lot of people will still hate him, even though he's not been here for a year and a half, and he's nowhere near the same. I love John Cena. I'm not even going to apologise. Look, I've got him right there. I absolutely love John Cena. So I was so buzzing to see him back. He got a huge pop of the night, maybe pop of the year. Honestly, it was insane how loud it was, and it was just nice. And you can just see he's a star. And even though he looks a bit older, he still looks great, but he is still a huge star. And yeah, obviously SummerSlam, Roman Reigns versus John Cena, it's looking like a great card with that Goldberg versus Bobby Lashley, and maybe Edge versus Rollins as well as the sub-headline. So yeah, honestly, it was a really good pay-per-view. Started off a bit slow, but obviously the main event matches were the main talking points. And even though the main event for me, the actual main event, Edge versus Roman Reigns, didn't deliver, I was so excited by the end with Cena coming back. It was a really good end to the show. So yeah, that was all in all probably one of the best WWE pay-per-views of the year, the last couple of years probably, because the fans really being back just made it like WrestleMania. Probably what WrestleMania is probably still the best one of the year, WWE wise for me. But this was definitely close. It was very good. Nice having fans back. They elevated the stuff that even for me wasn't hugely great. They still made it feel big, because wrestling needs fans, just does. I'm so glad the Thunderdome's done and the screens are gone for now. We can never know, COVID obviously pending. But yeah, I hope you liked the review. Please let me know in the comments if you guys have any other opinions. I really would like to hear them, because I want to know if it's just me going mad with some of these slight dislikes to the main event or other parts of the card, because I do feel like I'm being a bit negative. But hey, I guess we can all have our opinions. But yeah, thanks guys, and yeah, subscribe and share the video if you can. I really appreciate it.